Hello bookish friends, welcome to my March wrap-up part 1. In this video, I will talk about the 10 works that I finished in the first half of March. It looks like this will be one of the longest videos that I have ever made. I think maybe you should grab something to drink while watching this one. And like I did in my previous wrap-up videos, I will insert the clips that I recorded quite soon after I finish those works. Today is the 2nd of March and I finished 2 books back to back, which were carry-ons from the month of February. The first book that I finished was a book that I was reading for my in-person book club, Tatlı Betüş by Aziz Nesin. I chose this book for the club because Aziz Nesin is one of the most known authors in my country who writes quite fun books with a social message. In this book, there is a search of a woman who has inherited a very, very large sum from a distant relative. But is nowhere to be found, and the other beneficiaries cannot inherit this vast sum of money if they cannot find this woman called Güllü. So her nephew decides to find his aunt, who has been given as an adopted child to a doctor. This nephew learns about this very colorful woman who has gone through almost everything that a woman can be, with various nicknames, and the most famous one is Tatlı Betüş. As the nephew talks more and more people, he really wonders if the adventures of this very infamous woman, Tatlı Betüş, is an urban legend or not. The writing of Aziz Nesin is always fun to read, and especially in this book he has very, very good humorous bits, and the distinct voice of the characters who are telling the story makes it much more richer. I really enjoyed how the author made fun of the high society in that time by supposedly condemning this very notorious woman. I was quite impressed by the ending of the book. However, I thought this book should have been at least 100 pages shorter. There were some parts in the middle which felt a bit repetitive, although I also smiled while listening to those parts as well. I still very much enjoyed this book, and I gave Tatlı Betüş by Aziz Nesin an 8 out of 10. And the second book that I finished was the book that I was reading for Reading the Globe online book club, hosted by Rosa and Katya, Beyond the Door of No Return by David Diop. This book was translated from French, and the book takes place in Senegal and France in the middle of 1700s. In this book, we follow a botanist who goes to Senegal to research the very interesting and endemic plant and botanic species in the country. At the beginning of the book, this botanist dies and leaves a notebook to his daughter, telling about his time in Senegal and how he became obsessed with finding a Senegalese woman who escaped from slavery and is nowhere to be found. There were some parts of the book that I quite liked. The description of the time period and the environment of the country at that time, their traditions, such as their weddings, and also the portrayal of how they think as a society, both being a colony of France and also under the rule of tribe kings. However, I have to say the plot, although quite interesting, had some holes and inconsistencies in it, which made it a bit hard for me to be engaged in the story. But I'm glad that I read this book because of the things that I learned about Senegal. Overall, I gave Beyond the Door of No Return by David Diop a 7 out of 10. Today is the 5th of March and I finished the book that I was bud reading with Amy at Sobek. The third book in the House Murders series, The Labyrinth House Murders by Yukito Ayatsuji. The books in this series takes place in a weirdly structured and weirdly planned houses. And Shimada is the recurring character who's sort of like an amateur detective. This particular book, Shimada, along with an editor and his wife, a critic, 4 young mystery writers, are invited to the birthday party of a very famous mystery writer who owns the Labyrinth house. The house really has a very wide area which is structured like a labyrinth. When the guests arrive to the party, the lawyer of the author says that the host committed suicide and he left half of his inheritance for a competition in which the 4 of the mystery authors would write murder stories in which the author would be the victim. If you have been following me for a while, you know that because I read so many of them, mystery books actually sometimes fail to impress me. But I was totally blown away by this book. I did not mention in the synopsis, but the book follows the structure of a book within a book. There are the short mystery short stories. So it's a very multi-layered piece of work. The mystery was full of twists, but it was structured so well. When you read the explanation and the reasoning behind this twist, you totally get it. And it makes so much sense even though you did not think about it while reading the book. I loved that feeling which had not happened to me for a while. And additionally, as an architect, I was very impressed by how the house was described. And during our messages, Amy and I both agreed that the entirety of the book series would make fantastic mystery movies. Speaking of Amy, it was an incredible experience to read this book with Amy. Overall, I simply loved this book and I gave The Labyrinth House Murders by Yukito Ayatsuji a 10 out of 10. Today is the 6th of March and I finished another book that I was reading for March Mystery Madness, as well as Middle Grade March. The third book in Famous 5 series by Enid Blyton, 5 Run Away Together. In this book, 4 cousins and the dog Timmy come together in Georgetown in the summer holidays. And at the beginning of the book, they are very excited to spend another holiday together, and they are very much expecting to go to Korean Island, which is owned by George's mother. However, when George's mother gets ill and has to get an operation, the children are left with the Stick family, the servant family, who cannot get along with the children and also quite mean and rude. Like I mentioned in a video that I done quite a long time ago, Famous 5 was the first mystery series that got me into reading series and also mysteries. However, unfortunately, rereading this series has not been a success for me actually. The second book was a bit better. The overall series and especially this book felt very outdated. The thoughts and the opinions of the children who are supposed to be heroes annoyed me more than the servants who are actually supposed to be the antagonists of the story. I can clearly understand as a child I did not notice these details. And to be honest, these kind of things actually do not bother me in many of the books that are written a long time ago. Because I really want to preserve my good memories of the author. I've decided not to read any more books from Enid Blyton and also DNF this series. And I gave 5 Run Away Together by Enid Blyton a 5 out of 10. Today is the 8th of March and I finished one book yesterday evening and one book today. The book that I finished yesterday evening was the book that I was reading with the Pineiro project group for the past 3 weeks, which was Betüş by Claudia Pineiro. In this book, a man who has been suspected of murdering his wife 3 years ago is now murdered in his house, which is located in a gated community. And the former crime novelist is asked to live in this community and write about the community and the murder with her unique perspective. And when she goes there, she tries to solve the murder with the editor of the crime section, as well as the former employee who knows her quite well from his past. Those three quite different characters do come together to solve this murder, which becomes more and more complex as they dig into it. The previous two books that I read from this project were very different in tone. Elena knows, and the second book, A Crack in the Wall, was not a traditional mystery. And I think this book was the closest to a traditional mystery of the ones that I read so far. And the group who had read, I think, 3 more books previously stated the same thing. I have to say I felt very comfortable reading it as a mystery lover. But it also had other qualities than a very gripping mystery and a group of quite amateurs trying to solve the mystery. There were some parts which were not connected to the mystery, and they felt so realistic and added so much to the characters who are trying to solve the murder. And I quite enjoyed the flirt that happened between 2 of the characters. Additionally, like the previous 2 books, the writing was excellent. Overall, I gave Betüş by Claudia Pineiro an 8 out of 10. The second book that I finished was a book that I was reading for middle grade March. For the prompt of flower on the cover. You might say, Berna, there is no flower on the cover of Melissa. But the Chinese edition cover had a flower, and I specifically asked Krista if this would work, and she said it would totally work. So I'm counting it as that prompt. In this book, formerly called George, by Gino, we follow George, a 10-year-old who was born as male, but certainly not comfortable with her body and gender. And we follow her sort of coming out adventure, as she really wants to play the part of Charlotte, a female spider, in the school play. The sport and of course the antagonism from the people around her as she tries to accept the fact that she really wants to be a girl. This book was quite interesting to read for me, and it was also written very well, in my opinion. It touched upon a very important social issue with a point of view of a trans kid who's very uncomfortable with her gender and her body, which is something that is hard for me to imagine since I have not gone through any of this. I like the fact that the book was written not in a preachy way, but showed the facts that the character was going through. Unfortunately, some of the books that I've read from this subject has been over dramatic, played with the reader's emotions. This book did not have any of those, so I think it was a very good book. I gave Melissa by Gino an 8 out of 10. It is the 8th of March again, and I finished another book in the late hours, which was How to Reach the Moon by Nicolas Schuff. This picture book, originally written in Spanish, was provided to me via NetGalley. In this picture book, we follow the adventures of a little kid with his grandfather, and the grandfather promises that they will have a way to reach the moon. The kid is very curious about how this will happen. When I requested this book, I thought it would be a chapter book, but it was a picture book. So other than the fact that this was such a cute book, and I really loved the relationship between the grandfather and the child, I do not have much else to say. I thought it was a quite good book considering the target audience. So I gave How to Reach the Moon by Nicolas Schuff a 7 out of 10. Today is the 12th of March, and I finished one book yesterday evening and one book today. The book that I finished yesterday evening was a collection of two graphic novel adaptations of Agatha Christie novels, Five Little Pigs and Ordeal by Innocence. They were originally written in French. Five Little Pigs was adapted by Miceal and illustrated by David Charrier, while Ordeal by Innocence was adapted and illustrated by Chandere. In Five Little Pigs, titled Beş Küçük Domuz in Turkish, Hercule Poirot tries to solve a cold case murder which happened more than 15 years ago. And he interviews 5 people who have been in the house at the time of the murder. In the second book, Ordeal by Innocence, titled Yanlış, Hüküm in Turkish, a doctor, after having a traffic accident and having a temporary amnesia, remembers that he had picked up a young man just before the accident. That young man has been falsely accused of murdering his stepmother. The doctor goes to that family's house and decides to clear the name of the young man. Five Little Pigs is one of my favorite Poirot novels, and the graphic novel adaptation was also quite good because the plot structure is so solid. And especially for this one, I loved the illustrations and gave it a high 8 out of 10. And the adaptation of Ordeal by Innocence was also quite good. However, I did not like the illustrations as much and gave it 7 out of 10. So I averaged my rating and increased to 8 out of 10 in total. This book for memory of 2 of my dear friends who passed away. One is Alice and Emily is doing a read-along in which we read The Chosen Book or a work by Agatha Christie. I also read this book for the memory of Janelle. Also a very big fan of Agatha Christie like Alice was. One of the extra prompts in my Mystery Madness was to read a mystery book in memory of Janelle. So reading this book has become a very, very memorable experience for me. Second book that I finished was the book that I was reading for Roll the Dice reading challenge. When I rolled the dice, one of the prompts was to read a book contained in the Turkish Shelf list. I read Balık, İzlerinin Sesi, The Sound of Fishsteps by Buket, Uzuner. It's really hard to describe what this book is all about because the plot twist comes very, very early in the book. The book starts with a talented girl who's different from other people. She is chosen to be in a special educational group in one of the Northern European countries. While going there, she meets a man a bit older than her. She is very, very intrigued and impressed by his cleverness, also his vast knowledge of culture. Although I will talk more about this book when I do Turkish Shelf video of this one, I thought the plot was too weird for me. And I had a bit of a disconnection with the characters. However, I thought the book was written very, very well. And even though the plot was weird, I wanted to keep reading because the weird story was told in a very beautiful way. And I really admired the imagination of Buket Uzuner. So overall, it was a quite good reading experience for me. And I gave Balık İzlerinin Sesi, The Sound of Fishsteps by Buket Uzuner a 7 out of 10. Today is the 13th of March and I finished the book that I was reading for middle grade for the prompt of an author with 3 names, Ogre Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine. This book was also the prequel book and the last book that I have to read for Ella Enchanted series. This book starts with a marriage proposal. Evie, a healer, turns down the marriage proposal of Wormy, her best friend, because she does not want anything to change and still remain best friends with Wormy. However, Lucinda, a fairy who's very fond of giving odd gifts in celebrations and special events, decides to punish Evie because Lucinda thinks that Evie turned down Wormy because of her vanity and turns her into an ogre and says that this spell will remain permanent if nobody proposes to her in 62 days. Evie, for the rest of the book, tries to learn what it is like to be an ogre who are despised by the people because of their looks and very big appetites. I very much enjoyed the other 2 books in the series and this was no exception. I think Gail Carson Levine is very good at creating worlds and quite complex characters. And Evie was a very likable character, although she had faults, which made her more relatable. Additionally, I think this book had a great humor, as well as quite emotional and a bit romantic moments as well. Although the plot of the story is focused on marriage proposal, the best part of the book was the friendship between a very kind girl and Evie, stressing that friendship is as important as finding love, if not more. So overall, I gave Ogre Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine an 8 out of 10 and I am very proud to have finished another series. So this was the 10 works that I finished in the first half of March. Please comment down below, have you read any of the works that I mentioned in this video and what did you think of them? If you're a new viewer, first of all, welcome. Please like and subscribe. Hope to see you very soon. Bye. As for Turkish word of the day, I'm going to choose beyond. Beyond means ötesi in Turkish and ötesi is our Turkish word of the day. Have a good day.